How old was she when you started to date her?
15.
He was 23. She was underage. A doomed affair that ended in bitterness and grief.
She had a sexual relationship with a very close friend of mine.
Did you have sexual relations with anyone other than him?
No.
When you fool around with jailbait, you sort of accept the... Right?
Yes.
Now, Miss Atkinson, this is your mother?
Mm-hmm.
You're 17 now.
Yes, I am.
So this suit was really filed by you on behalf of your daughter. You say that you loaned him money.
Loaned him $2,000.
For what?
Repairs on his pickup truck. Bills that I paid for him.
Like what?
Gas and power. Very, very, very often, he would take me to the bank to get $20 out so he could get back and forth to work for a night. I have a copy of all my bank receipts for the time that we were dating.
Where did you meet him?
He is an old friend of mine's boyfriend's brother.
Yeah.
And we were just introduced one day, and we were friends for about 5 months, and then it went from there.
Did your mother know that you were dating him?
Yes, she did.
Did you think it was a good idea?
He wasn't like a normal 23-year-old. He was more like a 19-year-old. Seemed, and they were friends first.
That's not unusual. So he's 23 going on 19, and your daughter was 15 going on 16.
Yeah.
So you didn't think it was so terrible. Did you know that they were intimate?
Not for a long time, no.
So you took some money from her?
The loan was offered to me. What I did borrow from her, yes. Didn't take.
Well, tell me.
It was offered.
Right. And you took it?
It was offered
It
as
was
a loan.
offered several times, and I did take it. Yes, I borrowed, yes.
Why?
Not $2,000.
How much?
$800.
Well, $800 in one lump sum.
Yes, ma'am.
We're talking about little bits at a time.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
All the withdrawals listed on there, there's only, I think, one deposit that I made for my birthday on April 8th. All the rest of the withdrawals were not from me personally using the money, but from him using the money.
You mean using it to go out on a date, maybe?
No, to take it and pay his bills, or to, for instance, I bought him a differential. He needed a differential. I loaned him the $150 as a deposit down on the differential for his...
Does that sound familiar?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I've been self-sufficient since I was 18 years old. I've paid all my bills. No. And no, she did not pay no gas, power, or electric bill. She loaned me, which was offered, $800, which I paid back. Now, I don't know where she comes up with this, no.
How much did you have in this account when you started dating
To start
him?
out with, $2,200.
And prior to dating him, had you taken any money out of that account?
No, that account was saved up. I've been saving that money since I was 6 years old to go and buy a car when I was 16 or to go to college.
So what you're telling me is there were no withdrawals made from that account?
None. Zero.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Step up here, please, with your daughter. When did you find out that she was helping him out with money?
The first time I found out about it was his ex-girlfriend left a message on our answering machine telling Kelly that she would never get her $2,000 back, and a few other things she left on. And that was the first time I realized, uh-oh, she's really done it. She's given him some money. And I was afraid she wasn't going to get it back.
And when Mom confronted me, I did lie to her because I was trying to protect him.
When did you break up with him?
When? At the end of August.
Why?
He put his boot through the window of my parents' truck, kicked me in the face with it.
Why?
Lots of fights. We were in the middle of another fight, and it ended up in a domestic dispute.
Did you call the police?
Yes, I did.
In addition to the $2,000 that you say you took out of your account and gave to him, you're suing for $5,000 and the other for medical bills. For what?
During the time that we were together, I contracted a venereal disease, a virus called HPV. There's a letter from my doctor and bills, my medical bills for the last year.
Did you have sexual relations with anyone other than him during this period of time?
No.
What are you laughing about? Why is that a funny question?
No, just like that, no, no.
Well, if you have some information that she had sexual relations with somebody else, I'll hear you, sir.
She had a sexual relationship with a very close friend of mine.
When?
When? During the time that we were dating. Okay? The money that she loaned me, the $800, okay, yes, I did pay back. This was a doorway to open the account, and once the money had started being removed, the $800 that was loaned to me, then she went ahead and removed more money. Okay, whenever I caught up to this, and I confronted her about this, you know, spending money to go here, go there, I said, Kelly, you can't do that. That's not right.
Show me proof that you paid back the $800.
Show me proof that I borrowed $2,000.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
When you fool around with jailbait, you sort of accept the consequences of that, sir.
And later today,
You're not a
like
man.
him.
You're a little weasel.
Because
Your whole family.
Just go. Put him away for 20
Just go.
years. So.
Just
You know what? You're all going to jail.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kelly Atkinson is suing her former boyfriend, Daniel Cope, for money he took when they were dating. She also claims Daniel gave her a sexually transmitted disease and wants him to pay for her medical bills.
Now, you answered one question that I posed to you, sir, with a different answer. I asked you how you knew that she was having sexual relations with somebody else at the same time she was having sexual relations with you. And you are telling me about $800.
How do I know?
Yes.
Because I drove over to my buddy's house. That's where she'd spent the night instead of over at my house like she told her mother.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I caught them.
You caught them what?
I caught them in the house. Half dressed.
Does that sound familiar to you?
No, it does not.
Well, would you tell me what he's talking about if you
I
know?
have no idea.
Well, tell me about it, sir.
What do you want to know about it?
She was supposed to be spending the night with you,
Yes, Your Honor.
and
And
she wasn't there.
she was not there.
So you went looking for her?
I went looking for her, yes.
Well, I'm making this very easy for you.
Well, thank you.
Good. How much are your medical bills?
So far out of pocket is $895. And I'm going to need many more.
Well, you know, you're partially responsible, madam. So's your mother. In my judgment. You said it. He was 23, going on 19. Probably more like 15. So, he's no genius. Your daughter is 15, going on 16, and clearly she's no genius. You're supposed to be smart enough to put your foot down
Right.
and say, I don't want you to see this guy because
when-
he's too old for you, and I don't think it's appropriate at your age, at age 15, to be dating somebody who's 23 is not appropriate. Maybe when you're 30 and he's 38, it's a different story, but right now it's not appropriate. That's your job as a mother.
Okay, now whenever Mom did find out about his age, and how much we were hanging out together. I was lying to her, again, to try to protect him.
Your mother still says she knew very well that you were dating him, and that she gave her tacit approval because she felt that he was immature enough to be almost a contemporary of yours.
And I trusted
Which is
them.
a kind way of saying it.
Very kind.
Very kind. So you bear part of this responsibility. You know. Have you had yourself tested, sir?
I had myself tested, yes.
Good. Do you have the results of the test?
I have what they mail me is a card that says you're okay, fine, that you don't need to call us, you don't need to contact us, that you don't need to come in.
Let me see.
Okay, this does not say nothing, but it's a mailer, all right?
Well, it doesn't say anything. What are you giving it to me for?
That's the only thing that I do have. Okay, if otherwise I'd have been notified, you know, I'd have gotten a phone call saying, come in, we need to discuss this.
What made you go here for blood tests, sir?
Because I started a new relationship, and I wanted to get tested. I wanted to make sure that, you know, before I have an intimate relationship with anybody, that I do not have a problem.
Well, this is interesting because this was just done in October.
Yes, ma'am,
You
I
stopped
have a new
seeing-
relationship.
I heard that already. You sound like a
It's-
broken
it
record.
was-
But you stopped seeing her in August, right?
A year ago.
A year
A
ago.
year ago.
Right.
Right? So this doesn't tell me anything because I don't know whether you were tested a year ago and were treated during the course of that year for anything. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She'd been having sex for long before I come around.
And later today,
You're a lying
Your dad's
scumbag.
gonna
Your
bail
whole
you out
family is that way.
again.
Your dad's constantly bails you out. Your whole family is that way.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kelly Atkinson is suing her former boyfriend, Daniel Cope, claiming he gave her a sexually transmitted disease. Daniel says he knows nothing about it.
Mr. Cope, nobody is blameless in this situation. Unfortunately, you are the legal adult and she is the legal minor. And when you fool around with what we used to call when I was a child, jailbait, you sort of accept the consequences of that, sir. You took out this money. This was your money supposedly for a car,
For
correct?
a car or college, whichever I decided that was
Whatever.
more important at the time.
And so far you have medical bills in the amount of $895. I'm giving you a judgment in the amount of $2,895. I'm saying the following to you. You started off your life wrong. You're supposed to be smarter. You're 17 years old. Your mother is supposed to be smarter. Your mother is supposed to be protective. And as far as I'm concerned, this 15-year-old shouldn't have unfettered control over a substantial bank account. It's her money, but she's still a kid.
Right.
Fortunately, what was coming out wasn't money to buy drugs or other things, but it could have been. So you gotta be very, very careful and very vigilant as a parent these days. I assume your new girlfriend is over the age of 18.
Yes.
Great. That's all.
All right, is our excuse, you may step out. Back there to your right, please.
And I thought maybe they'd be good for each other. Maybe she'd help him grow up a little bit, and he'd help her grow up a little bit.
And now the next case.
Party's on Lewis versus Lewis. Step forward, please.
Secretary Royce Lewis is suing her 19-year-old stepson, Daniel Lewis, for money she loaned him to buy a stereo when he was 16.
Okay, so that we understand who the cast of characters are in this case, this is your stepson.
Yes.
This is your biological son.
Yes.
Are you still married to his father?
Separated.
Married but separated.
Right.
Well, a couple of years ago, while you were probably all living together, correct?
Yes.
According to this, you made a loan to these two boys
Yes.
to go out and buy some stereo equipment. At that time, he was 16.
Yes.
And it was your agreement that when he turned 18, he would pay you back.
Yes.
Turned 18?
Yeah.
What happened?
He never paid me back. The agreement was that when he turned 18, and I didn't ask for interest or anything, and before I gave them both the money, which was cash, I said, this is with the understanding that when you each turn 18 and get your money from your trust account, that you will pay me back the money that I've loaned you. And they both said yes. I said, then go get stereos for your car.
So you got a stereo for your car,
Yes, I did.
and you got one for your car.
Correct.
When did you separate from his father?
About 2.5, maybe 3 months ago.
And it was after that that you filed this lawsuit.
Right. I told him I was going to the time we were together, and he said I couldn't because he's a pastor of a church and it's his son, and I wasn't allowed to. I said he owes me the money and he's not paying it, and you're not doing anything to get it.
Well, but the marriage was already on.
Right.
Going.
No, actually, no, it wasn't.
Well,
But
then I'm going to tell you something. If you threaten to sue your
Well, no,
husband's son, that's a good time for marriage to start to go south.
well, I didn't threaten immediately. I said somehow something has to happen here. It's not right that he's getting away with all this.
Okay.
Okay. Our agreement, basically there was no agreement. She came up to, I did not ask for the money. I did not ask for anything from her. Me and James were both outside one day. She came right in front of our door. She walked down the stairs and was asking us if we had car stereos and how they worked and all this stuff. And she says, well, do you guys want to go down and get new CD players? And of course, I'm 16 years old. You know, I would love to have a new CD player for my car. So she gave us a blank check, said she told us how much we could spend. Me and James went down, got the same exact CD player. I came home, installed it in my car. Later that night, sitting in my room, she walked through the door and then told me that when I was 18, I could pay her back
That's a total lie.
because I was getting my settlement, okay?
So what did you say to her at that point?
Actually, I never said anything. I never actually said, okay, yes, I will do this, yes, I won't. But the thing is also, even if I had agreed to that, I moved up to Sacramento shortly before I turned 18. When I turned 18, I never heard nothing. To this very day, she has never verbally asked me for that money.
That is a total lie. His dad has talked to him.
Not since.
Not talking about his dad. You said it's you.
My dad left her 2 months ago, and that is when this is happening. And she's suing 4 of my dad's friends.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Have fun in jail because that's where you're going.
Miss Lewis, a minor cannot make a contract. When he was 16 years old, he could not have entered into a contract, either oral or written, with you for anything. And there are times when, if you enter into an agreement when you're a minor, and if you ratify it later when you turn 18 or 21, depending upon the jurisdiction, then it can become enforceable. But he did not do that. He did not ratify it when he became 18. You cannot make a contract with a minor who is 16 and expect it to be enforced in a court. This lawsuit is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. That's back.
Angie,
You got my case next, buddy.
Yeah, I've already reported you to Wells
I
Fargo
really
Bank for
don't
the
care.
check you forged.
I really don't care.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy,
You wouldn't have even had that money if it wasn't for me.
I got
said
it
you will
because
pay.
your son can't
you
drive and got in a car accident.
Shut up, you.
Why can't you be a man and pay the money
You
back?
lied to your dad.
Because you can't hold
I
a
lied to my
job.
dad.
Yes, you lied to your dad. You said you didn't get the money out of the trust account. I called
Okay,
the bank.
no,
You got it.
yeah,
Then
I
you
did
lied
get it.
and said-
The only thing
then
was I
you
got it
lied
3 months after I turned 18 because I couldn't. But what
because
does that
you were
matter?
too stupid to figure out how to
does
get
that
it on your
matter?
own.
I know you can't do contracts with minors. I'm not stupid.
We grew up together. We've been through thick and thin.
but these boyhood friends parted company when one of them won $500,000.
After that, I couldn't be friends with him no more because he had a swelled head. Your Honor,
Step up here,
he's
sir.
lying, Your Honor.
Just a
He's lying.
second. That's my strong suit, sir, to tell who's lying. What makes sense? Common sense.
Printer Stephen Cutler for a $3,000 loan. Stephen says John promised him the money after he won a huge settlement.
Order. All rise. Thank you. Judge, this is number 388 on the calendar in the matter of Harkness versus Cutler. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated, sir. Proceed.
Former friends
Correct.
fight over money.
Not correct.
Unfortunately.
Well, that's why we're here, sir, because this
Correct.
is a dispute over money.
Correct.
According to you, Mr. Harkness, you lent Mr. Cutler $3,000.
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Cutler says it was a gift.
Correct.
So why don't you tell me, sir, how did this loan come about?
Well, in the beginning of 1995, Stephen was living in a house. He was renting a room. He couldn't live at home. His father, they kicked him out of the house, and he couldn't live at home. He had nowhere else to go, and he was also getting kicked out of this new apartment that he had gone into. And he came to me and said, you know, John, can you give me $5,000? I said, Stephen, you know, $5,000 is a lot of money. You know what I mean? I really can't give you $5,000. I said, if
What kind of work do you do that you had
well,
thousands of dollars?
unfortunately, when I was younger, I had cancer, and I had gotten a settlement for it. And so when
How did you get a settlement for having cancer?
well, because I was misdiagnosed for not having it. And then I did have it, so it was a big, drawn-out thing. When I was 19, I got a settlement and put it away. So
And Mr. Cutler, you knew that he was getting a settlement?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And
Mr. Cutler, you knew that he was getting a settlement?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So Stephen came to me, like I said, asked me if I can give him $5,000. He didn't say lend. And I said, Stephen, I can't give you $5,000. I can let you borrow $3,000. He said, oh, come on, you can give me $5,000. You got the money. I said, Stephen, it's not about if I have the money. I can't afford it. You know, I was going to school. I put myself through college. And that was even before I got the settlement. So I've been working hard my whole life to save my own money. He said, come on, please, 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 you know. I said, all right, listen, I can let you borrow $3,000, but you got to pay me back. He said, well, I can't pay you back right away. I said, Stephen, I know you don't have money. If it takes you a year to pay me back, just pay me, you know, in drips and drabs, whatever you can, you know. So I gave him the money. He was so happy, you know. He said, thank you. My witness was present.
What did you write him a check?
I wrote him a check. And when I went to write him the check out, he said, don't write the check out to me, write it out to my father, because I don't have enough money in my account to cover it. Well, I said, that, you know, seems pretty sensible. He was asking me for the money, so obviously he didn't have money to cover it. And he said, I need the money right away because I have to put it down on a new apartment. So I said, no problem. I wrote the check out to his father so his father could cash it. After I gave him the money, I saw him less and less over the next 6 months. Come that October, I went back to college to get my bachelor's degree. So, and then I saw Stephen less even more. So I called Stephen up. Hey, Steve, I haven't talked to you in so long. How you been? What's going on? This and that. We talked like old buddies, like nothing had ever happened. Soon as I mentioned the money. What money? I said, Stephen, come on. You know, we grew up together. What do you mean, what money? You know? He said, you said that was a gift. I said, Stephen, come on. Who's going to give somebody $3,000? I was like, I haven't even given anybody in my own family $3,000, let alone a good friend. I said, I can let you, I let you borrow it. We said, that's not what you told me, and hung up the phone.
Okay, stop. Mr. Cutler, did you need money?
No, I did not, Your Honor.
You were working in 1995?
Yes, I was.
What kind of work were you doing?
Work and just distribution, loading trucks up.
Okay. Were you...
Work and just distribution, loading trucks up.
Okay. Were you evicted from residences at that time?
No, I wasn't.
Your Honor,
Well, tell me...
Your Honor, that's a lie.
Just a second. He let you speak. Get back in a second. You don't deny that he transferred, I'm not going to say gave, loaned, or whatever, he transferred $3,000 to you for your benefit?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Now, you tell me how that came about, sir.
We were longtime friends. We grew up together in the same neighborhood. And I knew John was getting a settlement, and he said to me, he said, Steve, he said, if I ever get a large settlement, he says, I'm going to take care of you and George Altz because you guys have been my best friends for so many years. Now, that's what he said to me. He said, you guys are going to get $5,000 each and a trip to Europe, he said to me. He said, I'm going to take you to Europe on me. That's what he told me.
I'm going to take you to Europe.
To Europe, yes, on him. That we were going to go backpacking, hiking.
So did you ever do that?
No, we didn't. No, we
Okay.
didn't.
So tell me about the $3,000.
So as time went on, we were in the basement and together, and he said, Steve, he said, remember when I told you I was going to give you $5,000? I said, yes. He said, well, I can't afford to give you $5,000. He said, I spent a lot of money. He said, but I could afford to give you $3,000.
You mean, and that just came out of the blue?
Yes.
Just to hanging out in the basement?
Yeah, yes.
Did you say to him, what happened to the backpacking that we were going to do, the traveling
No,
we were going to do?
I never brought up Europe. I wasn't going to be greedy. I figured whatever, you know, he was going to give me, he was going to give me.
So it just came out of the blue?
To be honest with you, it's been a few years. I don't remember the exact conversation, how it was brought up.
I do.
To be honest with you.
Go ahead.
It never took place in my basement.
Yes, it did.
When he was living in the house and he was getting kicked out, That's when the money transpired, actually. Mr. Alt was present.
He was present?
Step up here, sir.
Yes, he was.
Your Honor,
Step up here,
he's
sir.
lying, Your Honor.
Just
He's
a
lying.
second. That's my strong suit, sir, to tell who's lying. What makes sense? Common sense. Yes.
How you doing?
Your name is... I'm
George
doing
Waltz.
fine. How are you doing?
Good.
Pleased to hear that. Your name is?
George Waltz. Basically, me and Steve talked about getting a loan from John. Actually, it wasn't a loan. We wanted to receive $5,000. Stephen ended up asking him. I just kind of stayed off to the side. A short time after, Steve came back and said, he's not going to loan us $5,000. He'll let us borrow $3,000.
Why were you looking to borrow money?
Because I was in debt at the time, and I had a lot of bills. So did Stephen. So Stephen said, you know, I asked him, he would loan me $3,000. I said, I don't want a loan. If he's going to give me $3,000, I'll take the $3,000. I don't want another loan to get out of debt, to get back in debt with a friend. So I said, it's not even worth it.
Why would you think that your friend, Mr. Harkness, would give you money?
Like, we grew up together. I would. You got to understand our circumstances. You know, we've been through a lot since little kids. I thought...
Smeltzer, I know all three of these men here for well over 15 years. When John received his lawsuit, for years, well before he received it, Steve and George had been his best friend, lifelong best friends. John had bragged countless times, and specifically, that he was going to take care of them financially and give them a gift.
That's a lie, Your Honor.
Just a second. Were you present, sir, when you heard any discussion about $5,000 and a trip to Europe?
Yes, I was, many times. No. He made a lot of promises to a lot of people, not just Steve and George. I mean, he bragged that he was going to take care of a lot of people in many different ways.
Shh.
And
just a minute, a lot of people do that.
Yes, they do.
A lot of people do that.
But you got to consider the fact when best friends of this nature, they're considered like family. They grew up all their lives. It's more like family. It's like if I came into $1 million tomorrow, I'd have no problem giving Steve $5,000.
Friends with him no more because he had a swelled head and I couldn't deal with him no more.
And later today...
You're going to give a box of ashes to your children and say, here, hold your grandmother?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. John Harkness wants his former best friend, Stephen Cutler, to give him back the $3,000 he loaned him. Stephen claims the money was a gift.
What you, Mr. Cutler, is suing for is on a contract. You say that there was a contract, and your contract with him was that he was going to give you a gift, right?
Correct.
A contract requires, in the law, something called consideration. There has to be something that you give to him and something that he gives to you in order for it to be enforceable. Otherwise, it's just puffing. I'm going to take care of all of my friends. Now, there's a certain amount of common sense that suggests to me that you are having certain problems in 1995.
Your
That
Honor,
has a ring of truth to it, sir.
Your Honor, $3,000 wasn't going to make any difference in my life at that time.
He was getting kicked out of the
whatsoever.
Just a second.
Whatsoever, Your Honor.
Just a second. Then why, Mr. Cutler, would you think, sir, that after several years, because this transaction took place several years ago, that Mr. Harkness would at this point sue you for the $3,000?
Because he's a bitter man, Your Honor.
Just a second. Why do you think he's a bitter man?
He's a bitter man because I was friends with him for a year after he gave me the $3,000. After that, I couldn't be friends with him no more because he had a swelled head and I couldn't deal with him no more. And a lot of people the same way. So
don't tell me about a lot of other people. What
two
about
years
you?
later, he calls me up on the phone and said, Steve, he says, the money that I gave you, I want it back. I said, John, you gave it to me as a gift. He said, doesn't matter. We don't speak no more. He says, I want the money back. I said, well, you're not going to receive the money. You gave it to me as a gift. And he said, well, I'll see you in court. And I said, I'll see you in court then.
Just a second. I'm going to resolve this in a minute. Did he make the check payable to your father?
Yes, he did. He told me, Your Honor, the reason why he made it out to my father was he told me, he goes, I don't want you spending it all in one place. He goes, I feel if your father is involved with it, he goes, your father will look out for the money better than you will. And that's why he wrote my check to my father.
Oh, no. You see, a very important thing for you to remember, sir, is that common sense is what's supposed to prevail in a court. If he were giving you money outright, he would have given you the check made out to you. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if you didn't need the money immediately, you could have opened up a bank account, put that check in the bank account, and waited for the check to clear. The fact that he made the check out to your father suggests to me that you needed the money immediately.
Yes.
And thank you for agreeing with me.
Sorry.
I also think, Mr. Cutler, that of all of his friends, I haven't heard of anybody else that just took money from him. Right? You haven't told me about anybody else that just took money.
I'm the only one here, Your Honor.
Just,
I mean,
there were other people.
There were other people.
No, there wasn't.
I could have brought many witnesses here, but...
Name one.
Just a second.
Why'd you bring him?
Hey!
Sorry.
Sit down now. Mr. Harkness, I am satisfied based upon primarily the one tangible thing that we know, which is that you both agree on, that you made the check payable to his father, and that suggests to me that there was an immediate need that he had for the funds,
Yes,
which
Your Honor.
supports your story that he needed the funds immediately for a new apartment, which is totally different from what he's saying is that you were in the basement of your building making out a check and you said, I'm going to give you some money.
No, never happened.
Well, I know you say it never happened. So I am giving you a judgment, sir, in the amount of $3,000, which is the amount of the loan. Thank you,
Your
that's
Honor.
all.
Party's excused. You may step out.
That's right.
Out this way, gentlemen.
This way.
Out the back, go to your right.
A freak in disguise, bro.
See, that's all he can say.
A freak in disguise.
That's all he
Look
can
at you.
say.
Rip off that suit and
That's all he
the
can
white
say.
trash.
White trash with a
Mama's a freak,
with
his
a
dad's a
bachelor's degree.
freak, his whole family's
Bachelor's
freak.
degree. Ask him what degree he has. Ask him how many degrees he has. Nothing. I'm white trash.
And now the next case.
Party's on Gendron versus Gendron. Step forward, please.
42-year-old Suzanne Gendron wants her former sister-in-law, Teresa Gendron, to return the ashes of her mother.
Very strange case. And very old. Your mother died 21 years ago, according to your complaint.
Correct.
How old was she when she died?
She was 54.
And according to your complaint, your former sister-in-law, that's you, has her ashes.
Correct.
And she's had them for 21 years.
Yes.
You want them back?
Yes, Your Honor.
First, what took you 21 years?
I have been asking her since my children were born. We had an agreement that if and when I had children, because I was not married when my mom passed on, if and when I had children, that she would give the ashes to me to watch over my children. And
when did you make this agreement?
This was the year after my mother died, and we had agreed to that. And I began asking her for them when my daughter was born. My daughter, Sarah Louise, she's named after my mom. And I have not been successful in getting them from her since then. And we need her very much.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You don't know what it's like growing up in a house
Well,
full of
that,
men
you know, it's not
with no
like
woman's
Susan,
touch.
Susan, I'm
No
sorry.
one-
What woman's touch are you going to get from an urn or an ash?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 42-year-old Suzanne Gendron wants her former sister-in-law, Teresa Gendron, to return the ashes of her mother.
Hello.
How are you?
So?
I never agreed to give her back the ashes when her children were born. My mother-in-law confided in me that when she passed away, she wanted to be cremated, and she wanted her ashes thrown where her father used to dock his boat in Long Branch. I never knew exactly where this was, so I didn't want to just take her and just put her ashes anywhere. So the reason that I still have the ashes is because to this day I don't know exactly where she wanted her ashes thrown. She asked me to do this. I took it seriously, and that's why I still have the ashes. I never agreed to give you back the ashes.
Were you close to your mother before she died?
Yes, I was very close.
And did you hear her say, was she ill before she died?
No.
She was not. So
No,
this
she
was,
was
her
not.
death was sudden?
Very sudden. She had a heart attack.
When did she tell you that she wanted to be cremated?
She lived in Plainfield, and when she was in Plainfield, we spent a lot of time together. Suzanne didn't live in Plainfield. Suzanne lived in Montreal. And on one of our outings or trips to the shore, she told me that this is what she wanted because that's where she felt most peaceful.
That's
Now,
right.
is that right?
Yes, and I have explained to my sister-in-law that I am prepared, and I insist that we fulfill my mother's last wish. My Aunt Beth and my brother went last summer together to the exact spot where my mom wants her ashes scattered, and it was always in the agreement that I would have my mother for a short time, and then we would all go to that spot. We know exactly where it is.
Great. Well,
And
then
we
this is a very easy lawsuit to
We
resolve.
want to fulfill my mother's last wish.
And so do you.
And so do I.
Good. And when do you intend to do that?
Well, I was unaware that the aunt and my ex-husband knew or even went to this spot.
Well,
what
but
I
then-
want to know is why they didn't include me and bring me with them so that we could have fulfilled my mother-in-law's wishes a year ago.
Absolutely. That's going to happen.
That's going to happen.
That's
I never
going to
said I
happen.
would.
When do you want it to happen is the question.
On her 25th, on the anniversary, the 25th anniversary of her death, which will be in 3 years.
No. Why would you want to wait another 3 years?
Because I don't have very long to live. I've been diagnosed with 2 different terminal illnesses. And I would like, for my children and for myself, I have some very difficult battles to fight. And I need my mother's strength. And I don't think that after 21 years, I don't think that 2 years or 2.5 years is going to hurt my mom that much. I think she'll enjoy being with me, her daughter, and her grandchildren.
Ms. Gendron, what you say is very sad, but you can't give yourself, nobody can predict the moment that an illness that you have, even if it's a terminal one, is going to cause you to leave this earth. And I wouldn't like you to live under that kind of an onus anyway. I mean, that's a terrible thing. Right now, your mother, and you acknowledge that, had a dying wish. And her wish was that she be cremated, which she was, and that she wanted to rest peacefully, having her ashes dispersed in a certain way.
Yes.
So you have to do that.
Yes.
And you have to do that now. It's been all too long delayed.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What is clear to me is that every person has the right to dictate what happens to them at the time of their death. Your mother did that.
Yes, she
It's
did.
been delayed for 21 years. It should not be delayed at all. I will make an order, and you tell me at what point you're going to be ready to go to New Jersey. That's where she wanted to be scattered. So you tell me when, and I will fix a time frame, a week or a 2-week period.
Spring.
In the spring? Step up here. Yes. April?
Good.
April.
How about May? May 15th. That's my daughter's birthday. She's named after my mother.
Is that a good date?
That's a good date.
May 15th?
Yes.
Fine. That on or before May 15th, the 2 of you, together with any of the siblings that want to accompany you, will finally fulfill your mother's last wish. Case is resolved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Please.
Thank you.
And on the next Judge Judy.
In my opinion, my sister-in-law feels like a box of ashes is going to take all her guilt and loss away from her. That's going to put something back into her life. I don't live with a box of ashes.
It's not a
I
box
live with
of ashes. It's my
memories.
mom.
You're going to give a box of ashes to your children and say, "Here, hold your grandmother"?
No, I had a beautiful urn made for Mom. You don't know what it's like growing up in a house
Well,
full of
that,
men
you know, it's
with
not
no
like
woman's
Susan.
touch.
Susan, I'm
No.
sorry. What woman's touch are you going to get from an urn or an ash?
Even with a road map, I couldn't figure out what you 2 people are suing each other for.
But these roommates wanted a showdown in court ever since the night all hell broke loose.
She came out with full fists, pinned me in a corner, and started hitting me and pulling my hair and kicking me. They both started fighting. It was mutual.
Road map. And after a long nap, I couldn't figure out what you 2 people are suing each other for. All I know is that the 2 of you decided to live together for a period of time. Each of you has a child. Is that right?
Correct.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
And how old's your child?
3.
Terrific. And how old are you?
I'm 20.
And how old's your child?
4.
What an America. Anyway, you decided to live together. It didn't work out. and each of you wants $5,000 from the other. That's the only thing that I could figure out. You're suing for $5,000, your countersuing for $5,000. You have 5 minutes, I'm watching my clock, to explain to me why you're suing her for $5,000.
I'm suing Amber because when she asked me to move in with her, my agreement with her was the only way that I will move in with you is if Louie is not there. There is no drugs in the house. I do not want your dog there. I do not like dogs.
Louie is the boyfriend?
Yes, that is her boyfriend. She said, okay, he won't be there. The dog will be gone. And Mr. Lopez, the owner of the property, does know that you will be living here. Well, none of the above happened. Okay. She didn't let the landlord know that I was there. My mother spoke to the owner of the property, and he said, no, I did not know. There's 8 people living in a 3-bedroom house. Okay, the dog has attacked the mail lady and another mailman, a substitute. I told her, Amber, you know, it's not fair. We don't get our mail because of your dog. Take care of it. I told her, split the bills up evenly. She didn't. Her boyfriend was there 90% of the time. If it wasn't her boyfriend, it was her brother, 13 years old, not in school, watching TV, playing video games, eating the food. She didn't pay for any of the food. One time, $30. The rest of the food was bought by me. The electricity, I'm not paying for her boyfriend and her brother. She wants to divide it up evenly, divide it up by 8. Her brother, her daughter, her boyfriend, my daughter, me, and the other 2 roommates. That's how it should be divided up. If she's charging for us, for her boyfriend to be there and her brother to be there, that's what I think.
Why didn't you move out?
I gave her my 30 days notice.
Just a minute, how long did you live there?
I lived there for a month.
So what are you suing her for?
Because she had broken my bedroom window trying to move her stuff, or her boyfriend's stuff, and because it was raining and the weather damage, she said she would get it fixed. As a landlord, she has to.
Why didn't you put a cardboard there?
I put up a piece of paper. She told me, take it down. I'm going to get it fixed today. She never got it fixed.
Just a second. You go into a store, you buy a piece of plastic, you put it up on the window. So what you're suing for is for damage that was done to some of your things because of the broken window.
Because of the weather.
Because of the weather.
Because the weather came in through the broken window.
Okay. So that's what you're suing her for?
Yes.
Okay. And what was damaged?
My VCR. I have a statement, an estimate from the company.
You have a VCR,
what else? For $99, brand new, I just got for Christmas.
Okay. And what else?
And my TV. The TV, they said, unfortunately, there was nothing wrong with it. It had dried out. The moisture had dried out. $114 it says on here.
$114. So where do you get $5,000 from? Well, it's a nice round number. Now, what are you suing her for?
I'm basically suing her for the money she owes me for what she didn't pay rent. She put a stop payment on the check. She did beat me up in my own home, in my hallway. She and her mother have assaulted my boyfriend. My boyfriend was not there. You know, that was not the agreement.
Tell me,
my dog
what are you
was there.
suing her for?
I'm just suing her, you know, to protect myself. My property was damaged. I had to pay for that when I move in. I'm forced to move out of my home.
That's
a
what I want.
Restraining order against her.
Tell me about the assault, madam.
The assault, she assaulted my boyfriend.
I don't care about your boyfriend.
Okay. She assaulted me when a friend of hers came over. I did not know it was a friend of hers. I opened the door, and, you know, somebody was knocking on my door. I opened it. There's a girl standing there, and she comes walking into my house. She comes out of the bedroom, and I say, you know, I turn around to her, I say, I hope you don't have any plans to spend the night. Because we've been going through a lot of problems in the house with Valerie, you know, and yelling and screaming at everybody.
So you said, I hope she doesn't plan on staying through the night. And what
right.
happened?
I told her, I said, I hope you don't have plans on staying the night here. And she goes, yes, she is, and started cussing at me and F you, Amber, you know. And I said, well, I just want to tell you that I'm going to pay your half of the gas bill, you know, for my boyfriend taking showers, my brother taking showers. I pay your half of the gas bill, you know, for my boyfriend taking showers, my brother taking showers. On my face, I kicked the bottom of the door once, and I said, look, don't slam the door, I'm trying to talk to you. She came out with full fists, pinned me in a corner in my hallway, and started hitting me and pulling my hair and kicking me, and it took 3 people to pull her off of me.
You have medical bills?
Yes, I do.
Let me see them. You want to tell me about this assault incident?
Your Honor, my best friend, she's right here, came over because we were going over to some boy's house that night. She came, she knocked on the door, said to her daughter, "Oh, she's so cute. Is that your daughter? How old is she?"
Hi, Judy. My name is Marilyn Embry. I'm a friend of Valerie's. I came over to her house. It's been the second time I came over there. I didn't know the problem was that bad between the two of them. I knocked on the door. She was kind of rude when she opened the door. I said, "Hi, is Valerie here?" She said, "Yes, she is." And I said, "Oh, is that your daughter? She's really cute." She didn't respond to me. Valerie came outside. I did have an overnight bag.
Stop playing with the papers, please.
I had an overnight bag, but I had no intentions on spending the night. I thought maybe because we were going to come back late. I didn't know it was going to be that big of a deal. Well, she said, "I hope you don't plan on spending the night." Valerie says, "Yes, she is, and I don't think I need to talk about this with you anymore." Her and I walked down the hallway into her bedroom. She was still yelling, and Valerie's yelling back, "I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it." We go into her room. She shuts the door and locks it. She's still screaming, don't effing slam the door in my face." She kicks the door maybe once or twice. I really don't know how many times. Valerie opens the door because she thought the door was going to break. I thought the door was going to break. Well, her daughter's standing right next to her the whole time she's doing all this, and she's a little girl. We opened the door. She pushed Valerie. Valerie pushed her back. They both started fighting. It was mutual. Yes, Valerie was hitting her more times than she was hitting her, but I mean, we assumed that she was really going to hurt Valerie. She came to the door and kicked the door. I started pulling them apart, and then her little brother came out, and I just kept trying to break it up, and then the rest of the roommates came out, but she didn't want to attack her or anything.
What you're saying was she came to the
I
door.
saw it,
She
yeah.
came to the door. She kicked at the door. When she opened the door, she pushed her first. She pushed her back, and they started to fight.
Right.
And she was punching her more than she was getting punched. Judge, that's what you just said?
Yes.
That doesn't make any difference.
You're okay.
Who was winning the fight doesn't make any difference.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
She's quite responsible.
Oh, yes.
And later today,
Everybody is out to make a buck on somebody else's sorrow, sadness, hopes, dreams, aspirations. Yours is one of the worst kind.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Valerie Ricker says her former roommate, Amber Burgoon, damaged her home and property. Amber says Valerie assaulted her.
What else are you suing her for?
That is all.
Good. It's easy. Does it look?
I have something to add to it, if I might, please.
About what?
About the situation with the altercations, the trouble with Valerie.
What's the difference of the trouble with Valerie? Madam, you're her mother?
Yes, I am.
Why wasn't she living with you and your grandchild?
Because she's an adult and she can
She's not an adult.
her own way.
She's not an adult. She's a teenager with a 3-year-old child.
She's quite responsible.
Oh, yes. Who do you work for?
I work for Vaughn's.
And you make enough money to take care of you and your child?
Yes, I do.
Really?
Yes,
She
I
is
do.
on ADC.
Yes, I also am on aid.
So you get
Because
welfare?
I'm on aid, plus I work because my child's father does not want to
Just a
support
second.
her.
Just a second. You get welfare and you work at Vaughn's,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And you think that that's totally responsible. That's why she's a mature adult. That's why she's not living with you with her grandchild. So you allowed your grandchild to go and live in a house where there were 8 other people living.
No, there was not 8 other people
There wasn't
living there at
supposed
the
to be 8
time.
people.
See, that's what...
Just a second. How many times did you go over there to see the living conditions?
Numerous times. Every day I was there.
Well, if you were living there and your daughter is telling me that there were 8 people living in this house and a vicious dog, why didn't you take your daughter and your grandson after a day and say this is not an appropriate place for you to live?
We did.
And should she come home?
Yes, I
Yes,
did.
No, she didn't. She said she stayed there for a month.
in my house after the point.
She said she stayed there for a month. So I don't see the reason for a lawsuit. I don't see where you get $5,000. I don't see where you get $5,000. You tried living together. It didn't work out. You went home to your parents, correct? Goodbye.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
And now the next case.
Parties on Bartnoff versus Talon. Step forward, please.
40-year-old salesperson Barbara Bartnoff claims matchmaker Linda Talon scammed her by charging for photos and falsely promising dating services. Linda says Barbara was never guaranteed a date.
Ms. Bartnoff, you were interested in meeting some nice gentlemen.
Correct.
And how did you find the defendant's service?
In a magazine, it's called The Journal,
Can I
which circulates all over Los Angeles.
Do you have the ad?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to take a look at it. Now, why don't you tell me what happened when you responded to this ad?
Well, when I called up Ultimate Encounters, as described as it states in her magazine advertisement that the service is free for women. So I called her up and she gave me the pitch over the phone, how she has thousands of men inside her catalog, and, you know, they're all professional, they earn well over $100K, and she invited me down to her home, and she works out of her living room, which is located in Redondo Beach, and I went down there and she described me her service and how she has years of experience of psychology and sociology, and how she must have set up, you know, 90%, anyway.
Wonderful, and it wasn't going to cost you anything because the men pay.
Well, when she told me the service for women was free, however, you have to pay a fee of only $165 to have your photographs taken at her photography studio located in Hollywood. And you don't have the option of going to your own service, you have to go to hers. You don't even have the option of bringing in your own photographs.
Did you at any time ask then how she made a living? I mean, how does she make her money?
What she does is that she contacts all these men that she has in her catalog, tells them about our profile and background. If they like what they hear, then they go down to her house, review our photographs, then they instruct her, I want to meet this woman, that woman, this woman, and then she contacts the women and said, this guy wants to meet you, this guy wants to meet you, this guy wants to meet you.
That sounds all very nice. How do you make your living? Do you charge the men?
Yes, Your Honor. Depending on how long they join, Your Honor, they pay anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000. Depending on how long they join, Your Honor, they pay anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000, depending on the length of the membership, depending on the amount of guaranteed introductions they receive. The women pay absolutely no membership fee whatsoever. Period.
So let me figure this out. So you went down and took your photographs.
Correct.
And paid the $165.
Correct.
And nothing happened.
Correct.
Didn't get a call.
I got nothing from her. Every single month I called her and I go, hey, what's up? What's going on? Anything yet? And finally, after the 4th or 5th month, I finally got her on the phone because every time I called her, I always got her machine.
And she said you weren't picked.
Well,
in effect, that's what she said. I mean, I'm not being unkind to you, right?
Right.
That's what she said to you.
Well, she said a little bit more than that.
Well, I'd like to hear what she said.
She goes, well, I asked her, hey, Linda, what's going on? It's been 4 or 5 months. You know, you gave me the impression that you were going to set me up with all these guys, you know. And she said to me, listen, had you read your contract, the service fee was free. I work for the men who paid me a service fee of $5,000, and had you paid me $5,000, I would get off my butt tomorrow and start look for someone for you. And I would get off my butt tomorrow and start look for someone for you. And why don't you on me? You know, and I'm just going, real nice woman. So I called her back up. I go, Linda, listen to me. All I want to know, how many men did you potentially introduce me to?
What did you call her back for?
Well, I was just kind of curious, how many men did she present me to? Yeah. 1, 2, 5, 50?
Just a second. I don't want to hear you anymore. I really don't want to hear you anymore.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
That, madam, is a kickback. Do you tell them you're getting a kickback from the
I do
photographer?
not.
Good.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Barbara Bartnoff says she was never called for a date. Now she wants matchmaker Linda Talon to return the money she spent on photos for the dating service.
How many women like this paid you $165 to have their photographs taken?
I've been in business for over 6 years. This is the first time this has ever happened.
Well, maybe because the other ones were embarrassed.
I would say probably 500.
Why did you need a certain photographer to take the pictures?
The way that I do that is because when the men review the files, they're very visual. I can guarantee they have not been airbrushed or retouched. They feel comfortable when they go and meet the women for dinner, that they will not look different. They will not be disappointed.
Well, listen, just a second. We may talk a good game. I guarantee you on your best day, you're not as smart as I am. You are seeing the product in your office. If the product comes in, the lady product, you don't mind if I refer you, for the purposes of this argument, as a product, you can see what they look like. And if they bring you a photograph and say, well, here are my photographs, and you look at it and say, babe, this is airbrushed, or this looks like you when you were 12, can we get some more updated pictures? They can go out and do that. So that's the assurance that you need because you're meeting the person. She came to your home/office. So why does she have to take pictures for $165?
I just explained to you so the men feel...
Baloney! Because what you're saying to the men is, I've seen this person. They come to your home/office and they look at the photographs, and what you're saying is, I have seen this person, and this photograph is a fair and accurate representation of what they look like. I wouldn't allow a photograph to be placed near somebody that's 10 years old. So you're a scam artist because you're using this photography business as a way of making money.
I disagree,
Your service. Oh, no. You don't have to be a genius to figure that out. Cost her $165, and she got absolutely nothing from it. She's a perfectly attractive, upbeat kind of gal. People wouldn't know that she's an upbeat kind of gal from a photograph, but she's certainly a perfectly attractive lady. She spent $165 and got absolutely nothing from you because, as far as I'm concerned, you're operating a scam.
Can I interject, Your Honor?
Yes.
Charges $3,000 with 0 guarantees, and they make you go to that one photographer for $250, like it or not, no guarantees. And I personally got married through them.
Well, I want to tell you something.
So they do the same routine. So
I
what
want
I'm
to tell
doing...
you something. Just because one company is scamming for $250 and one company is scamming for $165, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right. And I'm not even going to ask you how much of that $165 ends up in your pocket. Because I don't like people to commit perjury. Dear.
Your Honor, there were no guarantees
Did you hear what I said? You want me to ask you the question? How much of that $165 ends up in your pocket?
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Miss Talon, how much of that $165 ends up in your pocket?
Very little.
Ha! Very little ain't nothing. So what you said is a free service is not a free
membership. Free membership.
God, Miss Talon, you know, everybody is out to make a buck on somebody else's sorrow, sadness, hopes, dreams, aspirations. Yours is one of the worst kind. And the other companies that you talk about who do the same thing are also among the worst because they're taking people who are really looking to make a life for themselves who say, I want this. And whether it's your place, great hopes, great dreams, whatever else they are, they're saying, pay us $165, pay us $250, there's no membership fee, just go, or $20 or $50 of $165. I'm not asking you that question, because it's really not important how much you get. You've already told me you get very little, which means you get something. That, madam, is a kickback. Do you tell them that? Do you tell them you're getting a kickback from the photographer?
Do not.
Good. $165. That's what you're suing for. That's what you get. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
I can't twist someone's arm to go out with someone. They're the ones that are paying. They get carte blanche as to who they want to meet. I personally got married through a matchmaker, and that are totally happy because they do get a service that I provide for them, and they're very happy with the that are totally happy because they do get a service that I provide for them, and they're very happy with the results.
She's behind me and she's totally tailgating me.
And as soon as I moved over, he swerved in front of me.
He says she insulted his male companion. She says he tried to run her off the road.
And he smacked the back of my truck, which sent me spinning out of control.
And then she spun out into the middle and I ended up on the side of the road.
This guy's a wise guy. Damaging your truck. He says you caused the accident. It was your fault. So I assume from these papers that you had some contact with each other before this incident happened. Is that right?
That's correct.
Well, tell me, what was the relationship between the two of you?
I do not really know him. I worked with his boyfriend, Felix, at an answering service. And Felix was to relieve me that day. I was in charge at my work. And he was calling saying that he was going to be late. And I got very upset because I had worked a 10-hour day. And he's always late. And so...
You're Felix?
Yes.
And so I got very upset and yelled at him. We yelled at each other, and I hung the phone up in his ear. Kevin is very protective of Felix and got angry with that, I guess. I don't know. I didn't have any contact with him until he hit my truck.
Well, tell me how that happened.
I was at work, and like I said, me and Felix had yelled at each other. And then I saw Kevin waiting downstairs, thinking he was just waiting for me to leave because I was in charge. So I was thinking he was
Just
waiting.
a second. He said he's going to be late. You got very angry. You yelled at him on the phone and hung up. Waiting downstairs.
No, it was because she gets off right when he starts. And
waiting downstairs.
No, it was because she gets off right when he starts. And
so you drop him off. He goes inside to the house.
Well, actually, he didn't end up going in. They were right at the door, and they were arguing right there. And I was watching, you know, to make sure that nothing happened.
Okay, so they were still outside.
No, that's
it was like right by. They were inside the door, but I could see them.
Arguing.
So they were arguing, right?
But then there came a time when he went in and she came out.
She came out, right, and I lit a cigarette, and then she made a U-turn and she went away. She drove in front of me, and I drove away.
So far,
and
correct?
There's been lots of times when we've driven away at the same time before. So.
Okay.
No.
So tell me what happened.
On the computer. And that when he clocks in, I clock out to relieve each other. So we weren't standing at the door. We were already in our office. And he was waiting downstairs. It was a good 5 minutes that we yelled at each other, and I got to my car. I had to get in my car and drive all the way down a hill, told Felix that he was going to follow me. Well, anyways, where did you
I
find
never
that?
said, sorry.
How did you find that out?
Because Janice, my boss's daughter, was staying at the house.
Well, you should have brought a witness because you can't tell me that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so you say
Kevin,
it was a good 5 minutes.
Yeah, a good 5 minutes.
And so tell me about what happened after he started to follow you.
Okay, it's in a gated community, and the speed limit's 35, and it's like a windy canyon road, and so I was going the speed limit 35. He was not stopping for any stop signs or anything. When I would stop, he would follow right behind me. I still didn't know what his problem was, so I kept going, and he passed me, which you're not allowed to do. It's just a 2-lane highway, and he passed me. So we get to a stop signal, and we had to each make a right. I don't know where he was going. So we get to a stop signal, and we had to each make a right. I don't know where he was going, but I had to make a right. And he had made a right as well, and I was behind him. We were in number 1 lane, and so he was going very, very slow. So I went in the number 2 lane. And as soon as I moved over, he swerved in front of me. And so I went back in the number 1 lane, but then a number 3 lane had opened, are you following? And he went all the way over to the number 3. So he's a number 1, and he cut all the way in front of me and went to number 3. And he was following me very closely. And so I was
So
going...
now he's behind you?
Again, yeah, now he's behind me. And so I was going around a turn, and it was raining that day, so I was braking around the turn, and he smacks in the back of my truck. So I kept going. I was going to pull over, so as soon as I was starting to pull over, he smacked the back of my truck, which sent me spinning out of control, and I hit the center median. And then as soon as I hit the center median, I bounced off of it, sort of, I guess you would say, and he rammed the center of the driver's side 2 times.
You have pictures of the car?
Yes, I do, before and after pictures.
Let me see them, please.
Do you want them out of the album?
No, I don't mind looking at them in an album. Okay, sir. Give me your version of the events, please.
Okay, I had just left his work, both their work, and she was in front of me, and she was driving so slow, and she was doing it on purpose. So I go around her, and then I went to the light where I was supposed to make the right-hand turn, and she's behind me, and she's honking at me and honking at me. And so then I make a right-hand turn, and she's behind me, and she's totally tailgating me, and I make a left. And when I merged over into the number 2 lane, because the number 3 lane ended, she was in front of me. She was just like right there in front of me. So then I tried to squeeze over to get into the number 1 lane, and she tried to get into the, she was trying to get away from me, and I was trying to get away from her. We both ended up in the number 1, and I hit her, and then she spun out into the middle, and I ended up on the side of the road. And I went over to her side of the road, and she was just yelling at me, telling me, I'm going to get you for everything you've got.
I was unconscious, sorry.
And so she drove away, and I mean it was just a car accident, Your Honor. And the only reason we're really here today is because she hates me because I'm gay. And I mean I've got witnesses here.
Yeah, she hates you because you damaged her truck.
No, well she hit the brakes.
Just a second.
She hit the brakes.
Just a second. First of all, you didn't say that when you were just telling me your whole scenario. Your whole scenario ended with the fact that you had to change lanes
Right.
Right.
And I ended up behind her. I don't know how I ended up behind her, but she hit the brakes. That's how I.
Listen to me.
Okay.
Can you say I made a mistake?
No. Yeah.
Good. Step up here. Listen to me very carefully, sir. Why were you going to be late?
Because I had to pick him up from work.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had to pick him up from work. I called her a half an hour before I had to be into work, and I told her I might be 5 minutes late. She gave me an attitude. She hung up the phone on me.
Had you ever been late before?
Yeah, I had been late in the past. I understand her.
Just a second. That's not right.
I understand. I understand, Your Honor.
She's worked 10 hours. He's got his problems. You've got your responsibilities, so she had a reason to be angry, correct?
Well, we both live together and we have one car, so...
She is not a partner in your misfortune.
I understand.
She wouldn't be a partner in your good fortune. She's not a partner in your bad fortune.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
If I told you you were a fat pig, wouldn't you be offended?
I wouldn't really care.
Okay.
I really wouldn't care. Your opinion does not matter to me.
It's the same thing.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Crystal Thompson says 19-year-old Kevin Paktovich stalked her and ran her truck off the road. Kevin claims the accident was her fault.
Now tell me what happened when you got there.
She was standing right there in between the couch and the wall in the office, and she was watching
where
TV.
is the office compared to
When
the
you
front door?
walk in, the living room's on this side, and then there's a door going into a den right here, and that's where the office is.
So it's off the front door.
Right. I walked into the office to clock in through the computer, and she was doing something in the kitchen. I think she was putting away her dishes. And then we had problems in the past with conflict between each other. She's very controlling. She's very controlling.
Not interested in her being controlling.
Okay.
Mr. Padilla, you told me you clocked in. You told me she was putting away the dishes.
Right.
You told me...
I told her, basically, I want you to talk to me with the same respect that I talk to you. She goes, you know what, Felix, you need to get a life. You need to become responsible. And she slammed the door in my face.
This is in the office?
Yes.
So you had this conversation with her. She was in the kitchen, then she came back to the office. You had this conversation.
I wanted to say more to her just to get things settled, so because we were working 2 weeks nonstop, just me and her.
Fine. Now you see, sir, when you lie, it always comes back to bite you in the behind. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because according to your witness, your witness supports her version of that day, not yours.
I understand what you're saying, but the office is right there at the front door.
Just listen to me. Not true according to your witness. They had a lengthy conversation. She wasn't even in the same room when he got there. She was in the kitchen.
Right.
Then she came back from the kitchen. All that takes time. So it's not, sir, as you suggest, that as soon as he walked in, they were standing right in front of the door and having an argument, and you were just waiting to see if everything was okay. So when you tell a fib, then you know what happens, sir? The person who's supposed to figure out the truth tends to doubt whatever it is that you're saying. You got it?
Yeah, I do.
Good. So now we get to the car. So now we get to somebody, so you're annoyed. You're annoyed because your friend is annoyed. And you decide, who are you?
I am his mother.
Whose mother?
Mr. Padilla's mother. I do not know her.
Just a second. What information do you have from your first-hand knowledge about the events of that day?
My son had called me. I'm sorry. My son had called me at my residence and had told me what had transpired that evening and evenings before that led up to the situation this evening, Your Honor. Apparently there was sexual harassment taking place at the place of employment by this girl, Crystal.
That's what he told you?
On several different occasions, yes, Your Honor.
So why did he, let me ask you this question. Instead of staying there because he shouldn't tolerate that sort of thing, why didn't he either leave or bring a sexual harassment lawsuit? Why didn't he do
had
that?
asked me what he could do, Your Honor, and I had explained to him, you have one of two choices. Either leave the place of the employment or
do a sexual harassment suit against her. He and that evening
I didn't
did
want to
quit.
leave work.
He did not
I
want
enjoyed
to
my
leave the
job.
work.
Your Honor.
This girl here called my place of employment and
old place
harassed
of
me
employment.
and threatened me, and I filed a police suit against her.
When was that?
About,
Weeks
it was a couple of weeks after this took place and my son had quit his place of employment.
Why would she call your place? What did she say to you?
Crystal used to work at where I worked, and she was let go because of her performance and because of other suits that were filed against her with the clients for racism and what have you with the city of Temecula. And at that point, she had accused me of walking in and taking her hours from her.
Listen, we're getting a little far afield of this. Let me tell you.
It
we're
does,
getting-
Crystal.
Hey,
It
listen to
does.
me. Hey, don't talk to her. Talk to me. Let me tell you this. Your son, this young man here,
Yes, Your Honor.
has told me the whole truth so far about the events of this day. That's why we're here in court.
That is correct, yes.
That's why we're here.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe so far what he's told me. I think he's been honest. He knew he wasn't right not to get to work on time. It was irresponsible. She's not a partner in his trouble. This guy's a wise guy.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You gotta think before you act like a dope. How old are you?
19.
I gave you a certain amount because you're a young dope.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. She says he deliberately ran her off the road.
This guy's a wise guy. He waited for her outside, and he damaged her car.
But the reason that the situation took place, and I could see both sides, is that they were both angry because of the harassment and the things that she was saying to my son.
Let me tell you something. She didn't wait for him. He waited for her.
No, but they were both, from what I understand.
He waited for her. Why do you think, madam, he waited for her? What do you think that he was going to do when he waited for her? You don't know.
You're right, I don't.
Right. But common sense and what happened here suggests to me that he waited for her to harass her. And the best way to harass her was in the car, because he wasn't going to get into a shouting match with her. He figured, I'm going to harass her a little bit in the car. That's what happened. That's why he waited for her. Instead of avoiding confrontation, he instigated confrontation. And you cannot suggest to me, madam, that you believe that because of the problems that your son was having, if he was having those problems at work, he had the right to do that. He did not have the right to do that because somebody could have gotten killed, somebody could have gotten hurt, somebody other than the two of you. A 5-year-old who was crossing the street in front of you when you were acting like a lunatic.
Your Honor, I totally understand that. I know that I'm at fault for doing that, I was being stupid and I was being childish, but she was doing the same thing. Because once we got out on the road, she was playing the same games with me.
You waited for her, sir, to do it, right?
I understand that.
Well, you didn't tell me that first. First, you gave me some C and B stories, sir, about, well, you both just happened to leave at the same time. That's what you told me first.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and then you told me that you saw this
told you
big
that
argument.
I waited for the argument to be over.
Then you told me you saw this whole big argument at the front door when you saw absolutely nothing because he was in there a good 5 minutes before she left.
But they were...
But me no buts. Give me the estimates on your car.
Why aren't you over here?
Mr. Padilla,
Yes.
you look like a nice young man.
Yes.
He's a wise guy. Do you understand what I'm wise guys? You look like a nice young man. You have a nice mother.
I got an estimate for everything that's mechanically wrong with my truck, that it won't work now, and then what it would do to fix the body of it.
A lot of damage. Show Mr. Padilla's mother the picture of the truck.
And the two after that, too. It's not just a little accident.
And you have some insurance coverage, is that right?
No, I have none.
Why don't you have insurance?
It canceled a month before because I was going to sell this car. Now, obviously, I can't, but I was selling
How much did you pay for the car? For the
My
truck?
dad paid $1,300 for it. but put thousands of dollars into it.
Paid $1,300.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no way, madam, that I am going to give you, what are you asking for, $5,000?
Correct. That's way less than what it's going to cost me to fix my truck.
Show me the bills for what your father put into it.
I don't have those.
Well, I can't help you.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
How long ago did you buy this car?
In '93. It was my first car when I was 16.
And what year car is it?
'82.
Okay. I'm giving you $1,300, which is what you paid for the car a very long time ago. Very few cars appreciate in value. They depreciate in value, yes.
Is there any, can I say anything about the threatening phone calls that I got from her? And what caused me to quit my job?
Can I say something?
To me?
Just a second. Wait 1 second.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Shh, 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 shh. He asked me a question, and I'm looking. Just a second. Did you file a counterclaim, sir?
I can't do it because...
Did you file a counterclaim?
No.
You have a lawsuit pending against her?
No.
Well, it might be interesting as to why you quit your job.
Well, that night after
while it might be interesting, sir, it's something that is not germane to this proceeding. She damaged her truck, and she can only establish to my satisfaction that she paid $1,300 for the truck. Nobody disputes that. You can't buy much for less than $1,300. But you got to think before you act like a dope. How old are you?
19.
Listen, I gave you a certain amount because you were a young dope, right? But a car in the hands of somebody who is using it other than for transportation is like a weapon. You don't settle grudges with a car or a truck, right? You don't do that. It's not smart. That's how a lot of people get into trouble. That's all.
Isaac, excuse you may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
If you ask Felix, I asked him every day to inform me so I could be informed about how gay people are or how they are. You call yourself it.
What are you talking about?
You call yourself
I'm allowed to. It's me I'm talking about.
Hello?
You telling me is a different story. Now, if I told you you were a fat pig, wouldn't you be offended?
I wouldn't really care.
Okay.
I really wouldn't care. Your opinion does not matter to me.
It's the same thing.
You walked out.
What did you
I didn't walk out. I have a good job. You have no life.
Treat me that way.
You guys need to get a life. I don't even know you. Who
That's
are
right.
you?
You don't know me.
You need to get a life too.
No,
That's why you are.
I have a life.
Oh, okay.
I have a life. I have a family. I have a job. I have a home. What have you got?
You still have some very strong feelings for her.
Yes, I do.
It was good when it was...
It was good when it was good.
But when he was drunk, it was lousy. Now they're fighting over the belongings he left behind.
If he did enter a period of sobriety in his life, would you be interested in trying to save your marriage?
No, I would say no.
Well, memorabilia of yours after you were out of the house. You place a dollar value on that memorabilia at $5,000. She says that you were an abusive drunk who hit her, left the house, disappeared for months. She had no idea where you were, and ultimately got fed up with storing this stuff and just got rid of it. Correct?
That is correct.
So, how long were you married to each other, actually living together?
On and off for close to 3 years, give or take. We were only married right at 4 months, though, when I left.
And I gather you were living with the defendant's father.
That is correct.
All right, sir, tell me about your departure from the house.
The evening that I left, I was quite intoxicated, if you'll bear with me. This is the first time I've seen Michelle since the evening that I've left, and I still haven't really gotten over her, but the night that I left, I did become intoxicated. I went back to her father's mobile home, whereas we had another argument, and I was intoxicated enough that I don't recall whether or not she hit me and knocked me down or she shoved me and knocked me down. At that time, I got up, I slapped her, and I left, and I never went back. That was my understanding with her. I had told her if I ever raised my hand to her, that I would leave. And that was the only time, Your Honor, that I had ever raised my hand to her.
So you left?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long were you gone before you made a request for this property that you say you left behind?
It was about 2 months.
And how did you make that request for the property?
By telephone originally?
Talking directly to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what property did you leave behind, sir?
I left my clothing, camping equipment, fishing equipment, some tools, an awful lot of books, memorabilia, my son's photographs from when he was a child, and I requested if I paid UPS prepaid, would she box these items up and send them to me? And at that time, I never really got a response from her.
Well, did she tell you that she had already disposed of all the stuff?
Not at that particular time, no.
Where were you for those 2 months, sir?
I was working, living in a little town called Antioch. I was living with my sister, and I was working, pumping gas.
Why didn't you call the very next week and make arrangements to pick up your stuff?
The emotional situation is that I had been fairly mentally abused by her on a number of occasions. As a matter of fact, there were times that I spent as many days in my van living there. This is my secure area. After an argument, you have to excuse me.
Do you have a drinking problem, Mr. Burge?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Has it been a long-standing problem with alcohol?
Yes, ma'am. Although this was one of the reasons I believe that Michelle had asked me to move in with her father. He also has a drinking problem, and he needed a drinking buddy.
Were you drinking all during the 3-year relationship with Michelle?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Michelle.
Yes.
Why don't you first tell me your version of what happened on the night that your husband left?
He was supposed to meet me that evening, and we were going, my son and him and I were going to go to MGM Adventure Park. He never came home. He never showed or called. And so when I returned from the park, because I went ahead and went, I found him at a casino in town, saw his van parked in the garage, and I went in and we looked for him, my son and I both. He wasn't there. So we went on home, and there he sat on the ground, very intoxicated, and laughing. And I said, thanks a lot for showing up for us. And I did push him on the shoulder, and he fell back. But I proceeded to walk down the hall and out, and he came after me, and he hit me with a fist, closed fist, like a man would hit a man. And it spun my head around. And I couldn't close my jaw for 7 days thereafter. At that point, we called the police. I was yelling, Dad, he's hitting me. Help me. He came out of the bedroom, and the police were called. At this point, Glenn tried to take my car and leave because his van was obviously still parked at the casino. And I pulled him out of the car. And I recovered my car. At that point, he walked down the street, got a neighbor to take him back to his van at the casino, and I never saw him again or heard from him.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I even went into rehab for 3 days.
But didn't work.
Well, after being out of rehab for 3 or 4 days, Michelle would make me a cocktail.
And later today,
I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for you, Susie. And every time I do something for you, this is the way I get it.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 52-year-old engineer Glenn Burge is suing his soon-to-be ex-wife Michelle, claiming she threw away precious photos and memorabilia of his son.
What had you done with all of his belongings?
Put him in an unlocked shed outside of our mobile home, which meant he had access at any time, day or night.
Ultimately, What did you do with them?
We left him there for which I have receipts from the Salvation Army until March 6th of '97.
And then they came and took all the stuff?
Yes.
What about his pictures and that sort of stuff?
They took it all. It was thrown in garbage bags and boxes and kind of...
And it had been 3 months that you hadn't heard from him, according to you?
Not at all. I contacted his aunts and uncles, which I had his address book, so I went through it and found some. Took a chance that he might be, and he was. He had been there. And so they kind of directed me to an address and a phone number.
So who called him? Did you call him?
Yes.
And what did you say when you called him?
I didn't reach him, I reached the relatives. Yes, Glenn was here. He stayed a few days and left.
So you never really reached him?
No, but he got the message, so he called back.
And when he called you, you still had the property?
Yes, we did.
So what was the conversation?
It was, hi, how are you doing? I can't live in Las Vegas anymore. The drinking's too available, and I would like you to come live here with me. And I don't really remember if the property really was mentioned at that time.
But then there came a time when you did call Salvation Army.
Yes.
Now, how much time passed between this first conversation that you had with him and the time that you actually disposed of the property?
Approximately 1 month later.
And why did you dispose of it at that time?
Because I received a letter from Glenn saying that he would be there on a Saturday and pick up his things. And I agreed, fine, we'll meet you here Saturday, and he never showed.
Do you have that letter?
No, that was no, I don't.
Do you remember writing a letter to her?
No, ma'am, there was never a letter written.
My father remembers this, Your Honor.
I believe you.
Okay.
I believe that maybe you don't remember, sir. Mrs. Burge, I gather from your husband that you knew that he had a drinking problem at the time that you married him, because you were together for 3 years, before you married him.
Yes, I did.
Why would you
I
do that?
didn't know it was to that extent at that point.
But you knew he had a drinking problem.
Yes, and he had said he was going to work on that, and I had hoped he would.
You know, I get the sense from looking at both of you and from listening to you, sir, that you still have some very strong feelings for her.
Yes, I do. I did since the first day that I ever met the lady.
And I also have a sense that but for his drinking problem, you feel strongly about him.
We did. We had a very, very close relationship. And it was good when... It was good when it was...
It was good when it was good. Good. Mr. Burge, what have you done, if anything, to deal with this problem that you have?
I haven't had a drink, Your Honor, in almost 3 months. During the course, if I may add, during the course of our relationship, towards the ending of it, I even went into rehab for 3 days.
But didn't work?
Well, after being out of rehab for 3 or 4 days, Michelle would make me a cocktail.
You have to understand, Miss Burge, the nature of the illness. You know,
Yes.
You can't treat it as if it's a thing that you can turn on and turn off. Sometimes you don't understand that. You believe that he hasn't had a drink? Looks pretty straight to me.
It's possible.
If he did enter a period of sobriety in his life, would you be interested in trying to save your marriage?
I'm not certain because he did hit me, and it wasn't the first time. He had tried to hit me before, but he
Well, that was
wasn't
only when he was
successful.
drunk?
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying to you. I mean, nobody should live in an abusive kind of relationship.
No. Yeah.
But he did leave.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, because I think he felt terrible that he did that.
And the police were on the way.
He probably was too drunk to even understand that.
Think so?
Mr. Burge, your lawsuit is a relatively simple one, sir. She doesn't have to store your property. She hadn't heard from you for many months. I do believe that you did make arrangements to go and pick up the property, and that you didn't show up, and she got fed up and ultimately said, just get the stuff and any recollection of this man out of my life because I don't want to deal with him anymore.
If I may, I also have phone records stating, or actually physically showing, that I have been in contact with her since December, January, February. And
She says that. She says that you had
right.
him.
And in February, I'd also sent her a dozen long stem roses to her job. I was trying to keep this relationship going as long as I could possibly because of the feelings.
Then you wouldn't want to be punitive, Mr. Burge.
Right.
And you did, in fact, hit her, and I believe that you hit her. Whether you realized it at the time or not, it was more than a slap. So you're going to have to live with the fact that because you have a drinking problem, you did certain things that were really the antithesis of good behavior for any human being to another.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I certainly get the sense from the two of you that neither one of you is prepared to totally throw in the towel. Maybe you can ditch Dad for an hour and go out and have a cup of coffee.
And later today,
You using me is over with. It's
Okay.
over with.
Okay, no problem.
That's it, Susie. That's
No
it.
problem.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Glenn Burge wants his estranged wife, Michelle, to pay for the loss of photos and memorabilia of his son. Michelle says she held on to his belongings for 6 months.
I don't think she's a bad person, sir.
She's not.
Okay. So then we really shouldn't be here today, other than perhaps for you to see her, because you said it's the first time that you've seen her since you left.
Yes, ma'am.
I certainly get the sense from the two of you that neither one of you is prepared to totally throw in the towel. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Pardon me, sir. Maybe you can ditch Dad for an hour and go out and have a cup of coffee or breakfast and just talk. Is that a possibility?
If she's willing.
You willing?
I don't know, Your Honor.
Well, you see about it, Miss Burge. If your husband, who I clearly believe you have some feelings for, still. No or yes?
No, I would say no.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Just too much has happened.
I can understand that. I can understand that. Mr. Burge, you may have to try a little harder, sir. She's vacillating a little bit, so you may have to try. Maybe 3 months isn't enough. In any event, I'm not entertaining a claim for $5,000, sir. I am dismissing your lawsuit. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
And now the next case.
Parties on Bishop versus Baum. Step forward, please.
35-year-old Lori Bishop is suing her former girlfriend, Ingeborg Baum, for the cost of a parking ticket. Ingeborg says it's not her fault she got the ticket and refuses to pay for it.
This was your friend. She asked you to do her a favor and drive her downtown because your daughter was in jail?
Yeah.
And you didn't have a car?
No.
So you did her a favor, drove her downtown, parked your car where you shouldn't have.
Well, not really where I shouldn't have. We parked the car. We stayed there. We tried to find out where Renati was going to be. And
Renati
how
is
long
your daughter?
Yes.
Find out how long it was going to be before she got released. Well, we'd been there probably about 3 hours, and we got back to the car, and Susie says, "What is that on your windshield?" And I says, "It can't be a ticket because I can park here. I parked here before. I know we can park here." So we went and got something to eat. We came back, and we parked across where in this little complex. And it said, "No parking, towaway zone." I'm like, I don't feel good about this. So all we had, when we started our trip out, I told her that I'd pay for the gas. I mean, she has to pay for the gas, but I'd give her the ride. So we got to the gas station, and her ATM card wouldn't work. So I put $20 in my car, and then I got $20 for us to eat because we weren't sure how long it was going to be for us, before we got back.
You parked your car where you shouldn't have parked your car, Miss Bishop.
Right. Well, I did. Well, it was.
Sure.
The sign said parking this way, no parking this way, right there.
What is that? Just a second. What does that have to do with her?
Well, I wouldn't have been there if it wouldn't have been for her.
That's what she keeps saying, and
I
I told
wouldn't have been there. I did her a favor. I've done a lot for this lady.
Miss
a
Bishop,
lot.
listen to me. Your argument is that but for the fact that you were doing her a favor, you wouldn't have had your car down in that location and you wouldn't have gotten a ticket.
Right.
And therefore, she is responsible for the ticket.
Right.
Let's say you were driving with her to pick up her daughter, and you were speeding.
Right.
And
No,
you
I
got a
wouldn't hold her
speed, just a second, and you got a speeding ticket. Who would be responsible for that
no, it wouldn't be.
Shh. Who would be responsible?
I would be.
Because you did the wrong thing.
Right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Now, you try to explain to me how it's different parking where you weren't supposed to be parking and speeding.
Well, because she didn't have the money to pay where we could park, where it wasn't going to cost us any money. I mean, where it wasn't going to, cause me any harm. She didn't have the money. She didn't have any money when we went.
But then when you parked there under the tunnel, I asked you, can
and
you
I could
park here?
Right, and I could because I did before.
So I asked you.
Just a second. So you said you've parked there before and you didn't get a ticket.
Right.
This time you did.
Right.
Pay it.
Okay. Well, what about the money that I took $40 to eat on for the parking, to finally pay the $5 for the parking and stuff. What about that?
Just a second.
I mean, when I called up her
Miss
one
Bishop,
day,
I think she's responsible for those out-of-pocket expenses. The gas, right?
Yeah.
You've paid $5 to park the car after you moved the car when you got a ticket? Were you with her when she moved the car?
Yes.
And she paid $5 for that?
Yes.
You think you're responsible for that?
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with you. That's $25. And if you think that you were wrongfully given a ticket,
right,
then you have to go argue that the Parking Violations Bureau. You go before a hearing examiner and tell them your story. But you parked your car in the wrong place. You got a ticket.
Right.
You have to pay for it.
Well, okay.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $25.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
That's not right, Susie. That's not right. Okay?
I
wouldn't have been there. I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for you, Susie. And every time I do something for you, this is the way I get it. I mean, what about the $100? I had to get it from her.
Gas. I will
Pay for the gas. What about everything else, Susie? So I'm just stuck with the ticket. I have nothing to say to you after this point. Even though I was a friend enough and took my whole day away to take you down there, you can't help me out by paying half the ticket? Yeah, walk off, Susie. Just walk off.
They took our baby back. I have photographs to show you. We had her and we were very devastated.
The heartbreak of an adoptive mother who finally had to make the ultimate sacrifice because the birth mother changed her mind.
They made me feel like I was selling her.
We had bonded with this baby. We had grown to love her.
She didn't play it 100%.
After adopting their newborn baby, the birth mother, 36-year-old Debbie Kay, changed her mind and took her daughter back. The Tothpals say they were heartbroken and devastated after losing the child they grew to love as their own. They're suing to recoup adoption costs from Debbie Kay and her boyfriend, Phil Francis.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 311 on the calendar in the matter of Tothpal versus Kay Francis. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. and Mrs. Tothpal, I've read your complaint, and I am most sympathetic because, as an old family court judge, this is not the first time that I've seen a failed adoption. According to your papers, you and your husband wished to adopt a child, and you were put in touch with the defendants, who, for reasons which I'm sure they will tell me, were prepared to relinquish the baby that the defendant was carrying to you, and you agreed to pay certain of her expenses for the last trimester of her pregnancy. So far, is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that correct? You did, in fact, make those payments. They were $1,500 a month to cover your expenses, medical bills, rent, whatever, during the course of the last trimester. And then the baby was born, a little girl, I believe, correct?
Right.
So you want to tell me what happened?
Well, we had entered into an adoption plan, as you've said. She was born. We were present at the birth.
I was present at the birth with my mother. I assisted in the birth. And
in the delivery room?
In the delivery room, yes. The next day, we came back to pick up the baby to take her home. We met with the social workers, and they agreed to sign a placement agreement, which they signed. We took the baby home, and we had her in our home for 7 weeks. We have 2 children of our own. We're very grateful that we have them. We feel very fortunate.
How old are they?
9 and 7. We bonded with the baby for 7 weeks.
Had you been trying to have a third child?
No. 5 years ago, I had uterine cancer and a hysterectomy, so I'm no longer able to have any more children. But we wanted to open our home up again to another child. We had always wanted to have more children, and this was just something we wanted to do, and which is why we chose adoption. We originally got involved in a surrogate program, but just got discouraged due to the success rate, and also because I had a lot of chemotherapy, and we didn't know the effect of the medication on my body, so we decided to adopt instead. And we, anyway, we had her for 7 weeks, and then they took her back. They took our baby back. I have photographs to show you. We bonded with her, we had her, and we were very devastated.
When did you know that there was difficulty?
We didn't know until she was born August 11th. We didn't know until mid-September.
What happened in mid-September?
We had a call from our attorney handling the adoption that apparently Debbie had sent them a letter stating that she was interested in possibly getting the baby back, but didn't say in so many words that she wanted the baby back. Basically beat around the bush. And he told us about this letter. We have never seen a copy of the letter. That was mid-September, and on September 30th, the morning of September 30th, I needed to bring her back.
How did that come about?
Well, there was a lot of talk for the tail end of the last 2 weeks of September. Phone conversations I was having between the social worker who was handling our case, phone conversations between myself and the attorney. She never really came out and told anybody she wanted the baby back. She never called me until the end of September, the 29th of September, was when I received a personal call from the birth mother stating that she wanted her back. And she said to me that she would like to meet me at a location, and she was going to call the attorney's office and let them know, make them aware of the fact that this is what was going to be happening. I was completely devastated. I was breaking down on the telephone. This wasn't, I mean, we had bonded with this baby. We had grown to love her. Our children had grown to love her. It wasn't as if she changed her mind, you know, the day that she was born. This baby was becoming attached to us. She was developing a personality. We were bonding with her.
There were some legal documents that had to be signed after the placement agreement, because that's what usually happens,
right.
And that's what we call a surrender document. You're familiar with that?
The only papers they told me that I needed to sign, if I wanted to, was to waive my rights for the 90 days.
That's what I'm talking about. And you did not sign those.
Right.
Am I correct?
Is this the waiver? You're talking about the waiver?
I'm talking
Yes.
about the waiver.
Right. No, I never signed those.
But you were asked to sign the waiver.
I was asked to sign those many times.
Many times. Well, we'll get to that in a moment.
She had also agreed to sign it in the hospital.
Are you two married?
No.
No, Your Honor.
But you live together?
Right.
Yes, Your Honor.
How long have you been living together?
5 years.
Yeah.
We have a 4-year-old together.
And how many other children do you have?
We have 4, besides the baby. We have 5.
And what made you decide that you thought it was in the child's best interest, since I assumed that that was your motivation, to place this child for adoption?
Neither one of us was working at the time, Your Honor.
We were just having a really bad time, and we neither one had a job, and
We just thought it would be the best for the baby.
because we couldn't provide really well for our own children and this one, and it was just very, you know, hard.
It was
a very
difficult
hard decision. It wasn't something that was easy. It was heartbreaking. It was very hard.
I'm sure it was. But you decided to do it.
Right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
2 days after the baby was born, we received a call from our attorney's office stating that they wanted $720 in lieu of an epidural so they could take their other children to Disneyland.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Heartbroken parents, Jennifer and Peter Tothpaul, are suing Debbie Kay, the birth mother of the baby they adopted. The Tothpauls say 7 weeks after they took the newborn home, Debbie and her boyfriend Phil changed their minds and demanded their child back. They're suing to recoup adoption costs.
So let's get to the reason you changed your mind and when you did.
There was just many reasons. There was many reasons because, well, one reason is because I wanted her. You know, it was devastating for me to give her up. You know, when your baby's born, you cry because you're happy. I cried because I was just
I cried because I had to give her away.
Right, and it was very hard. And
when, for the first time, did you make the decision that you were going to ask for her back?
It was about a month later. I had.
When? She was born in?
August.
August? And when did you decide to ask, when in your mind did you say, I'm going to ask for her back?
I can't tell you an exact date. I mean, I was going through so much, you know, it's just, in September. I had talked to the agency weeks before, and they never told them anything.
That's
you know,
because
I kept
you told
calling.
them not to tell us.
I did not tell
No,
them.
no, don't talk to each other.
I had talked to the social worker.
Did you have misgivings right after the baby was born in August about whether you were going to go through with this adoption?
No.
Was it a week later? Was it 2 weeks later?
It was about, I don't know, 4 weeks later. There was a lot of things that led up to it, you know, is that we had to go through so many things.
Like what?
Like, we sent all our kids away because we kept it a secret. And that was very, very emotional because I kept hidden. I didn't tell very many people. And just different things. It was just really hard. And they had told us things that, like, he wasn't even present for the birth. And I felt like, you know, she wasn't as important as their own children.
That's not the reason, Debbie, that you changed your mind.
No, that's not the only reason. It was just different things. I was just unsure about what was going on. And I felt, when I talked to everybody at the agencies and the lawyers and everything, they made me feel like I was, you know, less important, or I just felt less significant, you know, and it wasn't as important for them to send me the papers. They made me feel like I was selling her. And that wasn't my intentions at all.
When, for the first time, were you asked to sign the waiver? In the hospital?
Yes.
And you decided not to sign the waiver in the hospital. Can you tell me why? He did.
No, there was something was said like we were going to go out a couple weeks later for lunch or something and sign this paper, this waiver.
You mean you weren't asked to sign the waiver in the hospital?
Yeah, we were.
Sure you were.
Yeah, and we declined it then.
Right. My question to you is, why did you say no, sir, in the hospital?
In case she wanted to get the baby back, because I was fully supporting her and whatever she wanted to do.
So even in the hospital, you weren't sure that you were going to go through with this adoption. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm not telling you that at all.
But what you just said to me suggests that that was true, because if at that moment of the child's birth you were totally committed to this adoption, then you would have signed the waiver at the time. Don't speak to him. I understand that you can have a change of heart. My point is, these people are suing for nothing else other than, at this point, $4,500, which is what they gave to you in support for the 3 months that they agreed to. I mean, they can't be compensated for their heartbreak. That doesn't necessarily make you the bad guys, because you're entitled to have a change of heart. That's what the law provides. But my question is, when was the point in time when you had this change of heart? If you were committed to the adoption without reservation, you would have signed the waiver in the hospital at the time that they took the baby home.
We couldn't. We had to do it after. We had to go to this in LA somewhere. That's what we were told.
Because he wasn't there to sign something.
He doesn't have to be there to sign. You have to be there to sign. The waiver is something you have to do.
But they told me I could not sign this in the hospital.
They asked you to do it immediately thereafter, and you put them off.
No, I was going to do it. I had told them I would. And you know that I told them I would.
You never did it. Did you
Right.
go away on vacation?
I was going to go away, and I never was able to go.
But you told them you were going away on vacation.
Right.
Whether you went or not, you said you couldn't sign the papers. You'll sign them when you come home from vacation, correct?
Right.
So that's
They
right.
called me 3 days after the baby was born. They called me 3 days. I didn't want to talk about this. I didn't want to deal with it. You know, it was...
Debbie, I'm
But
not
I did not
faulting
tell
you
them.
for changing your mind, Debbie. I want you to understand that. The law builds that in. But if what you're telling me is 3 days after the baby was born, when the baby is already with the new parents, you're called and said, would you come in so we can sign the papers?
That's not what they didn't call me to say that. They just called me to tell me that he hadn't signed his part of the papers yet, and just to let me know what was going on. That was the only time I ever heard from anybody.
No, that's not true. You knew you had to sign the waiver. Come on,
Right,
Debbie.
that's not what they said, but they
you
weren't
knew
telling me to do it then.
You
That's-
knew you had to sign the
right.
waiver, and you kept putting it off.
And we had 90 days to do
They
it.
didn't tell me I had to
I
sign
know
it. They
you
said-
had 90 days to do it, sir. I mean,
Right.
are we understanding each other?
Yeah, totally. I'm not disputing anything. I'm just saying.
You had 90 days. Of course you have 90 days to do it. The idea is if you're committed to doing it,
Right.
then you do it at the earliest possible time, right?
Right.
And you two folks didn't do that because you had misgivings as to whether you were absolutely positive that you wanted to do it. Is that true?
No,
I don't
it's not.
believe you.
If
I
it-
don't believe that. I don't believe that because otherwise you would have done it. And the bottom line is, you did in fact say, I'm not signing the papers, I want the baby back. I'm not faulting you for wanting your baby back. I'm faulting you for taking their payments in September.
And you know,
I'm faulting you for that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You know what? She sent her sister to pick up the baby.
I had just started a brand new job. I couldn't just leave.
Talking about your daughter.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jennifer and Peter Tothpaul are suing Debbie Kay, the birth mother of their adopted baby, after she demanded they return her child. The heartbroken Tothpauls are suing to recover the cost of the adoption.
You took the money in September, even though you had misgivings. That's not fair, because that also says to them, everything is going the way it should be going. We can fall in love with this baby. That's not fair. And what I'm suggesting to you is, they're not the bad guys here. You're not bad either. But you didn't play it 100% straight with them. And it's a shame.
you know, when I talked to her, and I hadn't even made up my mind then, she was very, very mean. She says, I am not a babysitter, and I'm going to call Child Protection Services.
Well, for
And
once.
then, and I hadn't even said anything yet. I hadn't even said anything yet.
Sure,
and
she knew.
after she said, do you want to come to my house and see our home and everything? And I agreed, but that kept going through my mind. How could she be so mean? She's going to call the Child Protection Service on this baby. Well, she's hurting the baby. And then when we did change our mind, and they made it very, very hard for us to get the baby.
You would too. If the circumstances were different, Debbie, you would too.
No, no. She dropped her off. She didn't even tell me what kind of formula she was drinking. She dropped her off in just a diaper and a T-shirt, which, you know what? I didn't even know what kind of formula she was drinking.
Why didn't you ask?
She wasn't there.
Just why didn't you ask the social worker?
The social worker wasn't there either. The social worker was on vacation. The lawyer was the one that was giving us a hard time. He wouldn't even let the father pick her up. He's the one that told us they were going to call child. They made us feel like we were evil, and it was
In
nothing.
their minds, Debbie, you were evil. First, they hear that you're unable to take care of this infant because you have too many other kids that have to be taken care of. You have no jobs. You have no way of supporting this baby. And so that two people, the two of you, who look like two able-bodied people, had to accept $4,500, $1,500 a month to pay your rent and your food and whatever other expenses you had just to keep you for the last trimester of this baby's birth. And then, after 7 weeks, you say, well, now I want her back. Were you
7
both
weeks
working? Were you
7
both
weeks.
working at the time you got her back?
I had just started working. Just started working.
When you got her back. So who was going to take care of the baby?
I had a babysitter.
You know what? She sent her sister to pick up the baby.
That's right, because I just
She
started
was
working.
at work.
I had just started a brand new job. I couldn't just leave.
Talking about your daughter.
And we'd already agreed on this the night before. And she knew the whole situation.
She doesn't know the whole situation, Debbie. You just
No, I told her that
you're not being fair. You can't say that these folks did anything wrong.
I didn't say they were doing anything wrong.
Okay.
Can I mention something else?
Sure.
In lieu of receiving an epidural in the hospital, they wanted money in exchange for that.
But I didn't come up with that.
Please.
Don't speak.
They wanted money in exchange for that. That didn't come from us. We wouldn't make such a suggestion. I told her I wanted her to be comfortable, and we would talk about that after the fact. 2 days after the baby was born, we received a call from our attorney's office stating that they wanted $720 in lieu of an epidural so they could take their other children to Disneyland in San Diego.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I know you're heartbroken. Fortunately for you, you can be heartbroken and look at your 2 kids when you go home.
Right.
You know that.
I'm very grateful for my children. I'm
I'm
very
sure
fortunate.
I'm sure you know other people who have been through the adoption process and the adoptions have failed that don't have the 2 gifts that you do at home
That's
to go home and look at. It doesn't make it any easier. Tough lesson, but you understand how hurt they are. All right, the issue is not a difficult one, especially since I believe that you understand it is your moral responsibility to return this money. You had an agreement with the plaintiffs that that they would, in fact, take care of you for 3 months of your pregnancy, and you would allow them to adopt your baby. You did not allow them to adopt your baby, and therefore, they're entitled to their money back. So judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
Once you have it, you know, it's different, and then it just keeps stewing. You keep thinking about it over and over and over, and day after day after day. At least I did.
The way we feel or whatever went down today is really petty to the way we would have felt every day if we didn't get our kid back.
I was devastated that morning. You have no idea how devastated I was that morning. I barely made it to that office, barely. I was hysterical in that car driving her there. It's very heartbreaking to think that you've got to go 90 days and wait till day 90 or day 89, and then all of a sudden a decision has been made, and you need to give this baby back. We had bonded with this baby, and it was very devastating. We loved her dearly.
Exactly, Your Honor.
He called the cops, and the mother of 2 decided it was time to strike back. He says she keyed his car.
My kids are in the car, and it's hot, and they were starting to cry.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm an attorney, Your Honor.
You must have a very slow practice going to the post office.
Yes, Your Honor.
You were driving.
Yes, Your Honor.
According to your complaint, you got to the post office and looking for a place to park, and all the parking spots were taken.
It was about 10:40 in the morning. I drove into the parking lot. I noticed there was no spaces available. I looked over the parking space for the handicapped, and there was a car there, and I noticed that it had Louisiana license plates that were not handicap provided. I also looked at the front mirror to see if there was a placard there.
So you got out of your car?
Yes, I did. Then I went back to my car and I took out a Polaroid camera, and I took a picture of the car and my car as it was seated in the parking space for the handicapped, and then I wrote down the license plate number. And I also noticed when I was around front that it had a Navy parking sticker on it. So I copied down the number of that also.
Okay. So far, what you were doing is you were outraged that somebody parked in the handicapped parking spot.
Exactly, Your Honor.
Okay, so then what did you do?
Well, as I was writing down the license plate number from the car that was parked there, it was a black Plymouth, a woman came out of the post office, and she started yelling and screaming and waving her arms. She was waving her arms like this. And she said, you move that car, I'll move you.
What do you mean? I don't understand. Why did you have to move your car?
I had pulled in behind the car that was in the parking space in order to get out of the driveway, because the driveway was right next to that parking space. I pulled in behind it.
So you blocked the car?
Yes.
Now, when you looked inside the car, did you see anybody in the car?
I didn't notice anybody at that time, Your Honor.
Okay, so you had now blocked the car, and the woman came out and said, you better move the car.
Yes.
What did you do?
She was yelling and screaming, and I was absolutely certain that she was going to cause some violence. So I walked away from her and walked into the post office and called the police.
Why didn't you just get into your car and move your car?
I didn't think I had that much time. She was coming at me rather fast, rather loud.
Order.
Yeah, go ahead.
And while I was waiting in the post office, a Miss Corbett, who was going to be the witness, came in and said, "Is that your car with the handicap placard in the parking lot?" And I said, "Yes, it was." And she said, "That woman just keyed your car." And I went out to the parking lot to see if I could see where she had keyed the car, but she was still walking up and down between the two cars, yelling and screaming and throwing her arms around. So I didn't go out there. I just waited until the police came. And when the police came, I did go out and I inspected the car, and it had been keyed, the entire driver's side.
You do have handicap plates on your car?
I do.
Why is that, sir?
Because I have a back injury that limits my ability to walk.
How long have you had that back injury?
2.5 years.
And how long have you had the handicap plates?
About 1.5 years.
Mm-hmm. Step up, please.
Yes.
Can you tell me your name?
Yes, I'm Janice Corbett.
Miss Corbett, I assume you work in the post office. You're the postal worker.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see this lady key his car?
I saw this lady do a keying motion to his car.
Describe what you saw.
I saw her talking with another woman and some children, and she had her keys in her hand. She was frustrated. Then she went to the side of his car, and her arm turned. I could not actually see the key in her hand at this moment, but her arm was turned so I could see this part, and she walked stiff-armed alongside the car.
Okay. Ms. Kemp?
Yes.
According to your complaint, and you have a countersuit against the plaintiff for unlawful imprisonment of both you and your children, who you say were in the car.
Yes.
How many children did you have in the car?
3.
How old are they?
At the time, the twins were 4 months old, and Nicholas was 5 years old.
What were you doing at the post office?
I went to the post office that morning to mail a few letters and to purchase stamps. I did pull in to a handicap spot. Yes, I know that was wrong, but thinking that I would be in there 2 to 3 minutes, I knew I would be right back out. I just didn't think there would be a problem. So, and I was in a hurry because I went there before I brought Nicholas to school. So we went into the post office, my kids and I did what I had to do. I stopped at the front counter to make out some things on the...
How are you holding the twins?
They were in a stroller.
So you actually took them out of the car and put the twins in the stroller?
Yes.
And Nicholas was with you?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And we went into the post office. Like I said, on the way out, I stopped at the desk to put the stamps on and all. So I did that. We went back to the car. He said I was waving my arms. I didn't even recognize him because I was in such a hurry to get Nicholas to school. But I got in the car. As I looked back to see if my pathway was clear, then I realized he was parked behind me. So that parking lot is really small. So I thought maybe he was just trying to maneuver his way out of it. He didn't move. So I just sat there and waited a second because I didn't really know what he was doing. So he didn't move. I saw him come out of his trunk with a camera. So he started to take pictures. And so I didn't think anything. And then I looked up, and there was his handicap. I said, okay, I know what he's doing, and I know what I did. So I got out. And I was not enraged because I knew I was wrong. I became upset when he said he was not going to move. So I waited until he was done with it because I thought that would be the end of it. He's taking pictures. This is his evidence. They'll give me a ticket. That was not the end of it. So he went into the front part of his car to do what I don't know. So that's when I took a step to the back of my car, and I asked him, would he then move? He said there was no way in hell he was going to move, and he was the person that was yelling. I was not yet upset because I wasn't quite sure what his intentions were yet.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
When she came out, she was so violent that I was absolutely certain it was going to get into fisticuffs.
I don't believe you, sir. I
She's
don't
got
believe
30
you.
years and 30 pounds on me.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jerome Gigliotti says Monica Kemp slashed his tires and keyed his car in the post office parking lot. Monica says Jerome blocked her car so she couldn't pull out, leaving her and her children trapped.
You knew you had done something wrong.
Right.
But you knew that what he was doing, that he was gathering evidence so that he could present it to give you a ticket.
After a while.
Okay.
And he told me there was no way in hell he was going to move. I then started to tell him that, you know, I had to get Nicholas to school. I informed him that I did not have any more formula for my kids because I didn't bring any because I was intending a quick trip to the post office and to school.
I assume you were pretty hot at this point, Ms. Kemp. I assume you were.
I was not angry yet because I thought once I told him that, he would move. And I offered him other information of mine. I told him he could have my driver's license number. I did notice when he came to the front of the car, he was copying down my military information. I asked him, didn't he have enough information? He was ignoring me. When I offered more information, he ignored me. And at this point, when he started to walk off, I was like, I don't believe this. You are going to let us out, aren't you? And he just walked off. And so there was another woman who came up and she just started to ask me what was the problem and are you okay, because by this point I had become extremely emotional because it's like, okay, this man is not going to move and my kids are in the car and it's hot and they were starting to cry and I was just really upset. I was scared. So she tried to calm me down. She went in the post office and she asked him to move. And
did somebody else come into the post office and ask you to move, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Why didn't you?
I told her I wasn't going to go out there so long as that other woman, Miss Kemp, was out there.
All they wanted you to do was move the car.
You
Sir.
did not see the condition that she was. She was yelling and screaming, waving her arms, and there was no way I was going to get into a fight with her.
what was I going to do, throw a baby at you?
Just a second.
I had a baby in
Just
my
a
arm.
You know that all she wanted you to do was to move your car. She wasn't going to get into a fight with you because if she got into a fight with you, she couldn't get her kids in her car out. Come on, sir. Let's be honest with each other. You were very angry that someone had parked in the handicap spot that was really reserved for you. Now, I can understand that. I can really understand that. There's nothing to suggest that you did anything wrong in taking down the license plate number, copying down the Navy information, taking a photograph of her parking in that spot. I'm telling you now, I do have a problem with you blocking her car, especially when you knew that there were children with her, twins, under 6 months old, and her son. I do. I mean, you came into court today not in a wheelchair, sir. You didn't come in a wheelchair and you didn't come in a stretcher. So I don't know how come it is that you got a handicap parking placard. I have difficulty walking too sometimes. Nobody's going to give me a handicap parking placard. Right? Even a bird here sometimes gets tired, right, Bird? So, can't get a holier-than-thou approach to life, sir, and look at everything reasonably. I mean, this is a situation that was a fast-paced situation, but try to have a little understanding. She was prepared to get a ticket. You could have seen to it that she got a ticket. But you went a little overboard. Now, that doesn't excuse the fact that you keyed his car.
I did not key his car.
Somebody keyed his car. Let me see the pictures of your car. Come on, Miss Kemp. So far, you've been very honest with me. So far, I believe you've been very honest with me.
I have been.
That's right. Let's see, Roxas. And aside from the scratch marks on your car, you also had a blown tire, is that right?
No, Your Honor, it wasn't blown, it was slashed. I have a cast of the tire here that shows it's a very neat cut. And when I took it into the tire repair place, they said they couldn't patch it and that it had gone about ½ an inch into the tire. And it's a very narrow cut, so you can see there was a cut and there wasn't road damage.
If it was cut, you must have cut it, because I didn't.
Let me take a look at that, please. Well, it's kind of hard to slash a tire with a key.
May I say something?
Sure.
I would like to know if his tire was slashed, how did he back out to let me out? How did he get out?
I just said to you, I don't think he can establish through any witness that he has today that you did anything to the tire of his car. That's not what this witness said. Miss Kemp, look at me, dear.
I'm looking.
keying his car. Say, Ms. Kemp, I'm not suggesting to you that the situation didn't enrage you. You had a right to be enraged.
I know.
I believe you had a right to be enraged. What you did was a violation. Sir, what she was engaged in was a violation. I find it disingenuous on your part to suggest that you feared for your life, and when you called the police, you said that a woman had just assaulted you, because that's what you wrote in your complaint. This woman never assaulted you. If she came out swinging her arms and being very agitated because her car was blocked, that is not an assault.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm an attorney, Your Honor.
You must have a very slow practice.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jerome Gigliotti says Monica Kemp did damage to his car at the post office. Monica denies she did anything wrong and says Jerome overreacted by blocking her car for 2 hours.
Let me explain something to you, sir.
You need help.
What you found was a violation. No different from finding somebody parked in front of a fire hydrant. Same kind of violation. The action that you took was not in direct proportion to the violation that you observed. Once, sir, you observed this lady and her children. She had 3 little kids. Wisdom would have been the better part of your action, and if you would have said, I now have the proof to take to the police, this is her car, this is this, she is going to get a ticket for parking in a handicapped spot, which was clearly wrong, you and I would have had no problem. And if she vandalized your car, which I believe that you did, Ms. Kemp.
I see that, but I
Right.
didn't.
Yes, you did. Your action was not responsive to what you saw, sir. You did not exercise good, mature judgment. Good, mature judgment would have meant, once you saw what she had in the car, which was 3 small children, you pulled the car out, let her leave, report it to the police, go to the Army barracks, do whatever you wanted to do in order to see to it that she had to pay an appropriate fine. It would have aggravated her enough to have paid a fine. What you chose to do was to create and incite a situation by blocking her car. That was dumb, stupid, and I guarantee you, if she had been 6'4" and a man walking out of that post office, you would not have blocked the car. No question in my mind, you would not have blocked that car. So,
Your Honor,
I have
pulled
a
in,
loss.
I didn't intend to block her car.
Well, you
I
did.
intended to take down the information.
You
When
did.
she came out, she was so violent that I was absolutely certain it was going to get into fisticuffs.
I don't believe you, sir. I
She's
don't
got
believe
30
you.
years and 30 pounds on
I
me.
don't believe you, sir. All
30
you had
years,
to do,
you
hey,
wish.
all you had to do was
Look
get
like my
in your
great-grandfather.
car. You had already taken the pictures. Get in your car and leave. And she, with her 3 small children, was not going to assault you. And you will never convince me otherwise, sir. Never. So, you have a lawsuit, and you are suing her for $5,000 for illegally parking in a handicapped space.
Your Honor, I later found out that she lives 1 block from the post office.
And?
Just a second.
She
My
could have
son-
walked home if she wanted to. It was 1 block away.
And you
Sir,
could
Shay,
have moved.
please don't respond to him.
You're right, I shouldn't.
Shh, please don't respond to him. First of all, how did you find out she lives a block away from the post office?
I took the license plate down and I used the DMV in New Orleans, in Louisiana and Baton Rouge to find the registered owner. And then through the Postal Service, I obtained a forwarding address from that address to the address in San Diego.
Do you work?
Yes.
What kind of shop? What kind of work do you do?
I'm an attorney, Your Honor.
You must have a very slow practice.
Yes. That's what I think.
Because if you took the time over this nonsense
Yes.
that you have just told me about,
Yes.
you'd be far better to donate some of your time and some of your energy, sir, to the poor. I was sympathetic to you up to a point. There isn't a soul who drives a car that isn't infuriated when they are driving around and around and around and looking for a parking space and see somebody who has abused their parking privilege and parked in a handicapped spot. Not a soul who's driven a car who hasn't had that kind of frustration. You took it a step too far. And she has a cross complaint against you for $5,000 for unlawful imprisonment for a period of well over 20 minutes. Is that what it was?
No.
How long?
It was like 3 hours.
Until, from the time he blocked your car until the time the police came, how much time elapsed?
From the time he blocked me until the time the first set of police arrived?
How many sets of police arrived?
They had to call someone else to make him move because he, and that's on my cross complaint also, about the intentional infliction of emotional distress. This is when my son became emotional because he would still not move. They had to call someone else to make him move.
Why wouldn't you move when the first set of...
He wanted me arrested.
Why wouldn't you move when the first set of police came?
The first set of police never asked me to move my car.
I heard him.
Well, you were no longer in fear.
That's true.
Just a second. You were no longer in fear, sir, because you now had police officers around. Why didn't you just move your car?
Because they didn't tell me to. All they wanted to do was talk to me.
He's lying.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
I believe you keyed his car, right? Let him fix it. I believe that your children suffered during that period of time. And I assume you'll never park in a parking space again.
I haven't even been back to that place.
Never. Your complaint is dismissed, and your countersuit is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
She started coming at me with the obvious intent to hit me. She was swinging her arms, and what she said was, "You move your car or I'll move you." And I'm sure that she had the intent of moving me physically.
And with my children in stroller in hand, I would like to propose to you, how would I have done that? Did I just let them roll when I came at you like this? Did I do that?
She didn't have any children with her when she was coming at me.
Okay, that's a lie also. And when I found out he was a lawyer, I knew he absolutely had no business. He had no clients, because if he had, he'd have been there helping them. He's bored. But my keys were inside the ignition because when he wouldn't move, I turned the car on to give my kids some air. So I couldn't have keyed his car because I had no keys in my hand. I just wanted her to let him know that he's wrong. So the fact that I lost matters not. I'm just glad he lost.